Nathan sat alone in the dim corner of his nearly empty apartment, the walls stripped bare just like his once glorious life. The cold air stung his weak lungs as he clutched the edge of the sofa, fighting another wave of dizziness. Once celebrated as a ruthless millionaire who owned towers of glass and steel, he was now a man reduced to silence, debt, and a body failing faster than he could comprehend. His trembling fingers hovered over his old, cracked phone, scrolling through names he no longer had the courage to call. Friends? Gone. Business partners? Vanished. The woman he left everything for? She had abandoned him the moment the money disappeared. Then his eyes stopped on a name he never expected to need, Lena. His ex-wife. The woman he had tossed aside without mercy. His throat tightened, shame burning through him, but desperation left him no choice. He pressed the call button with trembling hands. Miles away, in a warm and peaceful home filled with soft light and gentle order, Lena paused when her phone rang. Moments later, her son Leo stepped inside, brushing snow from his jacket. He sensed the shift in the air instantly, watching his mother's face pale as suspense twisted the atmosphere around them. In the warm glow of their early years, Nathan and Lena looked like the perfect couple, two people who believed nothing could break the home they were building together. They married young, full of passion and shared dreams. Nathan was gentle then, thoughtful, always planning surprises for Lena. She would often laugh and say she felt like the luckiest woman alive. But success changes people. When Nathan's business started booming, the man Lena loved slowly began to fade. His days grew longer, his temper shorter, and his priorities colder. Meetings became excuses, late nights became routine, and Lena found herself eating dinner alone more often than not. He stopped noticing the small things, her smiles, her exhaustion, her attempts to hold the marriage together. Where once he would hold her hand tightly, now he barely looked up from his phone. As Nathan's bank account grew, so did his arrogance. He started treating people like they were beneath him, even Lena. The humble boy she'd fallen in love with transformed into a man obsessed with power, image, and admiration from others. And with success came temptation. Lena noticed the subtle signs first, the sudden scent of perfume on his shirt. The secretive texts he'd hide as soon as she entered the room. The shift in the way he talked, sharper, dismissive, as if she were a burden instead of a wife carrying his child. Whenever she asked what was wrong, Nathan would snap back, "You're overthinking. Don't ruin things with your insecurity." But late at night, while he was out working, Lena would sit alone, pressing a hand to her pregnant belly, whispering to her unborn child that everything would be okay, even though her heart already knew the truth. The marriage wasn't dying. Nathan was killing it. The first real cracks in their marriage appeared quietly, almost invisibly, like tiny fractures beneath the surface of glass. Nathan had become obsessed, completely consumed, by money, status, and the validation that came with being seen as a powerful man. Every conversation revolved around profits, new investments, and how much more he wanted. Lena would listen, gently reminding him to rest, to slow down, to remember what truly mattered. But Nathan no longer cared about meaning. He cared about winning. Lena felt herself slipping into a silent kind of loneliness, the kind that sits beside you even when someone is in the same room. Nathan was there, but not present. He would come home late, eat in silence, and scroll endlessly on his phone. Some nights he didn't come home at all. Lena would wait on the couch, exhaustion forming dark circles under her eyes, but determined to save what was left of their marriage. One night, while folding laundry, she found lipstick on Nathan's collar, a color she never wore. Her throat tightened, but she swallowed her suspicion, telling herself it must be a mistake. But deep down, she already knew. The lies had started long before the evidence appeared. Then came Alicia. The name she wasn't meant to discover. A woman Nathan spoke about with a tone he hadn't used for Lena in years, light, warm, almost tender. Lena noticed how he smiled at his phone, how he hid the screen when she walked by, how he suddenly cared about his appearance again. Every sign pointed to one painful truth: Nathan wasn't just pulling away, he was giving himself to someone else. Yet Lena didn't give up. Despite the heartbreak, despite the loneliness, she begged him to talk. She tried making his favorite meals, tried planning small moments for them, tried holding on to the vows they once made. But every attempt was met with coldness, irritation, or outright anger. Nathan acted like she was the problem, clingy, emotional, dramatic. Lena wasn't weak. She was simply fighting for the family she believed in. But the harder she tried to hold on, the more Nathan slipped away, into a world where she no longer seemed to exist. Nathan blindsided Lena on a rainy Tuesday morning. She was preparing breakfast when a courier arrived with an envelope, thick, official, and cold. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Divorce papers. No discussion. No warning. No final conversation. Nathan had already signed everything, as if ending their life together was nothing more than a business transaction. Lena felt the floor shift beneath her feet. Her vision blurred as she tried to process the blow. After years of love, sacrifice, and loyalty, he had thrown her aside like an inconvenience. She called him, once, twice, 3 times, but he didn't answer. The silence was its own kind of cruelty. The courtroom felt even worse. Nathan stood on the opposite side, confident, polished, emotionless. Alicia sat in the back, legs crossed, chin lifted in triumph, watching like she had already won. Lena tried to maintain dignity, but her shaking hands betrayed her fear. When the judge asked if Nathan wanted to say anything before the proceedings continued, he didn't hesitate. "She's holding me back," he said, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I need freedom. I'm done carrying dead weight." The words sliced through Lena's heart. Gasps filled the room, but Nathan didn't flinch. He didn't look apologetic. He didn't look conflicted. He looked relieved. As if shedding her was finally giving him the life he believed he deserved. Lena could barely breathe, but she forced herself to stand tall. She refused to let him see her break. When the divorce was finalized, Nathan didn't even wait for the judge to finish speaking. He turned, walked straight to Alicia, and kissed her as if he hadn't just destroyed a woman who once loved him unconditionally. They left hand in hand, laughing, as though Lena had never been part of his story at all. Lena walked out alone, her heart splintered but still beating. She didn't know what her future would look like now, but she knew one thing with painful clarity: Nathan had chosen a different path, and he didn't care who he crushed along the way. The moment Lena stepped out of the courthouse, her legs gave way beneath her. The emotional storm she had been holding back crashed over her all at once. Her breath hitched, the world blurred, and the last thing she remembered was the cold pavement rushing up to meet her as darkness swept in. When she woke, she was in a hospital bed, the sharp scent of antiseptic filling the room. A doctor stood by her side, flipping through charts, his expression soft but serious. "Mrs. Hayes, you fainted due to stress and exhaustion," he said gently. "But there's something else we need to discuss." Lena's heart clenched. More bad news? Had the stress damaged her health? The doctor sat beside her. "You're pregnant." Everything inside her froze. Pregnant. The word felt unreal, as if it belonged to another life, one where Nathan still loved her, where they still dreamed of building a family. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pure joy, nor from pure sorrow, but from a devastating blend of both. A baby. Their baby. Growing inside her at the very moment Nathan was walking away without looking back. She pressed a hand against her stomach, trembling. I didn't know." "It's early," the doctor assured. "But the baby seems healthy. What you need now is rest and emotional stability." Emotional stability. The phrase felt like a cruel joke. As Lena lay there, staring at the ceiling, 1,000 thoughts crashed through her mind: fear of raising a child alone, heartbreak over Nathan's betrayal, and the faint flicker of hope that this baby might be the only beautiful thing left from a shattered marriage. One decision slowly rose above all the chaos. She would not tell Nathan. He had chosen his freedom. His new life. His mistress. She would choose her child. And she would protect this baby with everything she had left. Lena stepped out of the small apartment she rented, the cold morning air biting at her cheeks. Her bag was heavy with groceries she had bought for the week, and her back ached from the long hours she had already put in at the diner. Every day felt like a balancing act on a tightrope, with exhaustion waiting to pull her down if she faltered for even a moment. She worked tirelessly, moving from one job to another, waitressing in the morning, office assistant in the afternoon, tutoring children in the evenings, anything that could help her make ends meet. The weight of responsibility pressed on her chest, yet she refused to let it crush her spirit. Her pregnancy added an extra layer of strain. There were nights she would collapse in her bed, tears slipping silently down her face as the baby moved within her. Some days, the complications worried her, sharp pains, dizzy spells, and constant fatigue, but she pushed through. Each pang, each ache, reminded her of the life growing inside her, a life worth every ounce of struggle. Society offered no mercy. Friends whispered, acquaintances judged, and strangers stared with pity or disdain. How could she raise a child alone, they wondered. The words stung, yet Lena refused to let the world define her. She ignored the gossip and the stares, her determination growing stronger with each challenge. She was not weak. She was not helpless. She was fighting for her child and for herself. Late at night, when the apartment was silent, she would rest her hands on her rounded belly and whisper promises. "I will give you everything, my love. I will protect you. I will make sure you never feel abandoned, even if the world is cruel." Those whispers became her mantra, her shield against despair. The exhaustion, the judgment, the pain, all of it fueled her resolve. Every job, every sacrifice, every sleepless night was a step toward the life she wanted to build for her child. Lena knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that nothing could break her. Not betrayal, not loneliness, not the weight of the world. She was determined, and her child would never want for love or care. The night Lena went into labor, the sky outside her small apartment was dark and heavy with rain. Every contraction hit like a drumbeat of fear and anticipation, yet with each one, her resolve strengthened. She clutched the hospital rails, her breath coming in ragged bursts, and whispered encouragements to the baby she had carried through so many trials. Every ache, every tear, every sleepless night led to this moment, the moment when all the uncertainty, fear, and heartbreak would transform into something beautiful. Hours passed in a blur of pain and determination. Nurses moved with gentle efficiency, doctors gave calm instructions, but it was Lena's strength that carried her through. Her body shook, sweat clung to her brow, and still she fought. This was more than childbirth, it was her first real victory after betrayal, exhaustion, and loneliness. Then, at last, a cry pierced the room, a small, perfect sound that made Lena's heart leap. Tears streamed freely down her face as the tiny, fragile body was placed in her arms. Leo. Her son. Every pang of pain and fear melted into a tidal wave of joy, overwhelming and pure. She pressed him to her chest, feeling the warmth of life against her, the rhythmic rise and fall of his tiny chest echoing the rhythm of hope she thought she had lost forever. In that instant, Lena knew that Leo was more than her child. He was her purpose, her strength, her reason to endure every hardship she had faced. The betrayal of Nathan, the struggles of survival, the loneliness, all of it faded into the background. Holding him, she whispered softly, "You are my everything. I will never let anyone take you from me, not even your father." And in that hospital room, surrounded by the quiet hum of life and machines, Lena finally felt a peace she hadn't known in years, a peace born from love, resilience, and the miracle of new beginnings. Nathan's life after the divorce appeared flawless to the outside world. He moved into a penthouse overlooking the city, surrounded by luxury cars, glittering parties, and a social circle that hung on his every word. The magazines called him a self-made success, an untouchable tycoon who had everything a man could desire. But beneath the shine, the cracks were already forming. Alicia, his new partner, was both beautiful and cunning. She knew exactly how to appeal to Nathan's ego, praising him lavishly when he made bold business moves, subtly guiding him toward decisions that seemed daring but carried hidden risks. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm at the right moments, and whispered flattering words that made him feel alive again. Nathan, blinded by charm and flattery, didn't notice the seeds of manipulation taking root. Driven by ambition and the intoxicating thrill of his new life, Nathan made increasingly risky business deals. He poured money into ventures that promised unimaginable returns but had shaky foundations. He ignored warnings from trusted advisors, believing his instinct and fortune were enough to carry him through. Each investment felt like a power move, a way to prove he didn't need Lena or anyone else who had ever doubted him. Slowly, the luxury began to crumble. Debts piled up. Contracts fell through. Key partners withdrew at the worst moments. Alicia's true intentions surfaced as she quietly siphoned resources and distanced herself when Nathan's empire wavered. The life he had built so meticulously was unraveling. Despite the public image of success, Nathan started feeling the isolation of his choices. He missed the warmth of a real home, the honest love Lena had given him, and the child he never knew he fathered. Pride kept him from acknowledging mistakes, and desperation kept him silent. Yet the first signs of downfall were undeniable: missed payments, threatening letters, and a gnawing emptiness that no amount of wealth or admiration could fill. The man who had once commanded power now faced an empire teetering on collapse, manipulated by the one he trusted, and abandoned by everyone who mattered. Nathan's downfall was quiet, silent, and relentless, but it was only just beginning. Leo grew up surrounded not by wealth or luxury, but by love, discipline, and the quiet strength of a mother determined to give him the life he deserved. From his earliest days, Lena poured herself into him entirely, sacrificing sleep, comfort, and even her own dreams to ensure that he had stability, education, and the moral compass she had always valued. Every meal she prepared, every late-night study session she sat through, every word of encouragement was a brick in the foundation of the man Leo was becoming. Despite their modest home, Lena instilled in Leo the values of kindness, integrity, and hard work. She encouraged him to pursue knowledge, to question the world, and to approach every challenge with courage. Leo learned to appreciate what mattered most, not material wealth or social status, but empathy, loyalty, and personal excellence. He excelled in school, standing out as a diligent student who always helped classmates in need, respected his teachers, and quietly led by example. Awards, accolades, and recognition came naturally to him, but they were always tempered by humility. Lena worked tirelessly to support him, juggling multiple jobs and endless responsibilities, yet she never let Leo feel the weight of their struggles. She shielded him from despair, teaching him that life's hardships could be met with grace, intelligence, and resilience. While Nathan chased superficial success, Leo grew into a young man defined by substance, depth, and character. Every step of his growth was a testament to Lena's unwavering love and determination. She had given him not just survival, but the tools to thrive, to dream, and to become a man who embodied everything Nathan had failed to be: responsible, compassionate, and morally strong. Leo's quiet victories, his achievements in school, and the way he carried himself with dignity and respect became a living reflection of Lena's sacrifices. By the time Leo reached his teenage years, it was clear to anyone who met him, he was the man Nathan never was, a product of love, not money, of resilience, not arrogance. Lena's heart swelled with pride, knowing that, through her dedication, she had raised not only a son but a legacy of strength, honor, and hope. In the glittering circles Nathan now moved through, Lena's name had taken on a strange, almost mythical quality. Whispers followed him at every gala, every dinner party, every boardroom meeting. "She's the expensive ex," some would say, voices dripping with mockery. "Can you believe he ever married someone like that?" Others implied she had drained him, ruined his life, or sabotaged his rise to power. The words stung in Nathan's ears, but they were meaningless to him in a way he could not admit. Deep down, he knew the irony, the truth. Lena had never asked for a single cent from him. She had raised their child alone, worked tirelessly, and lived humbly. She had carried his son through betrayal and heartbreak without so much as a complaint. Nathan's own pride, however, would not allow him to acknowledge it publicly. Every mention of Lena stirred a bitter mix of guilt and embarrassment. He avoided conversations where her name might come up, skipped social events where she could be a topic, and buried himself deeper into business ventures and parties with Alicia. Guilt made him silent, but it also made him resentful. The reality was unavoidable, though. The whispers followed him, the judgments echoed in his own mind, and no amount of wealth or power could erase the shame he carried for the life he had abandoned. Meanwhile, Lena lived untouched by the gossip, her life quiet, dignified, and filled with love for Leo. She knew who she was, what she had endured, and the truth of her sacrifices. The title Expensive Ex could have been bitter, cruel, and mocking, but in Lena's hands, it was meaningless. She never needed wealth or approval from Nathan or his circle to validate her worth. She had her son, her home, and her integrity, everything Nathan had lost sight of, everything he would one day realize he had thrown away. And that realization, Nathan did not yet know, was coming closer every day. 18 years had passed since Nathan had walked out of Lena's life, leaving her to face the world alone while he chased wealth, power, and a life of appearances. Over the years, he had built a carefully curated empire, a glittering tower of success that seemed untouchable. But pride and arrogance have a cost, and Nathan was about to pay it in full. The first cracks had appeared quietly: failed investments, lost contracts, mismanaged finances, but he ignored them, convinced that his instinct and past victories would carry him through. Then came the collapse. Deals fell apart, debts piled up, and lawsuits began to rain down like a storm he could not control. Alicia, sensing the fragility beneath his polished surface, left him, taking her share of wealth and influence with her. In the grand world he had built, Nathan now found himself entirely alone. The physical toll of his downfall mirrored the emotional devastation. Sleepless nights, skipped meals, and constant stress drained him. Illness crept into his body slowly at first, a persistent cough, fatigue, dizziness, but eventually it became impossible to ignore. He felt his strength fading, his mind clouded by panic and regret. He had once been untouchable, a man admired and feared, but now he could barely lift himself from his chair without shaking. Isolation weighed heaviest of all. Friends who had envied his wealth vanished, colleagues abandoned him, and mentors who once praised him now shook their heads with pity. He had no one to turn to, no shoulder to lean on, no hand to hold. Every mistake he had made, every betrayal he had committed, returned to haunt him in full force. Nathan realized, too late, that all the money in the world could not buy the one thing he had truly lost: love, family, and the respect of the woman he had abandoned. Desperate, weak, and on the brink, he reached for a phone he never thought he'd use, seeking help from the only person who had ever truly cared for him, Lena. Nathan's hands shook as he held the phone, the weight of years pressing down on him like a physical force. Every finger trembled as he scrolled through contacts, stopping finally at a name he had never imagined dialing again: Lena. His throat tightened, guilt and desperation colliding in a storm of emotion. He pressed the call button, the tone ringing in his ears like a countdown to judgment. "Hello?" Lena's voice answered, calm but cautious. The warmth he remembered was still there, but it was tempered by time, experience, and the quiet strength that had carried her through 18 years of struggle. Nathan's voice came out raw, trembling. "Lena, it's me. I don't know where else to turn." The words sounded pitiful even to him, a shadow of the confident man he once was. Shame clawed at his chest. He had abandoned her, ignored her, left her to face life alone, and now he was reduced to begging. There was a pause on the line. Lena's hand hovered over the phone, her instincts warring with the part of her that had always cared for him. Could she trust him? Could she help the man who had caused so much pain? She hesitated, then said slowly, "I'll listen. But you need to tell me the truth, Nathan. Everything." From the next room, Leo, now 18, entered, curiosity written across his face. He caught the tense tone of the conversation and his ears perked. Who was Nathan, and why was his mother speaking with such caution? He listened quietly, piecing together fragments of words: desperation, apologies, fear. Questions swirled in his mind, but he didn't interrupt, sensing the gravity of the moment. Finally, after several minutes, Lena exhaled and said firmly, "We'll come. You need to tell us everything in person." The words hung heavy, carrying the weight of a decision made with care and caution. Nathan's relief was immediate but tinged with guilt. He had no idea how much this visit would change his life, nor how profoundly it would shake the world he thought he had rebuilt. In that instant, the course of their lives began to shift, threads of past choices weaving together for the confrontation that was about to come. The drive to Nathan's apartment felt surreal to Lena. She had walked past this part of the city countless times, but never with her son by her side, never with the knowledge that she was returning to face the man who had abandoned her and their unborn child 18 years ago. Leo sat quietly in the passenger seat, his eyes alert, scanning the streets and occasionally glancing at his mother. He didn't know the full story yet, but he could feel the tension radiating from her. When they arrived, the building looked nothing like the luxurious towers Nathan had once called home. Paint peeled from the walls, a broken railing clanged in the wind, and the faint hum of distant traffic filled the air. Lena steadied her breath as they climbed the narrow staircase. Each step felt heavier than the last, carrying memories and anger she had buried for nearly 2 decades. Nathan opened the door before they could knock. The sight of Lena, strong, composed, and carrying the grace that had always defined her, stopped him cold. And then he saw Leo. The resemblance hit him instantly. The same dark eyes, the same strong jawline, the same expression that had once belonged to him in mirror reflections and photographs. His heart stuttered. Every lie, every betrayal, every selfish choice he had made crashed back into him in one devastating moment. For several long seconds, none of them spoke. The air was thick with emotion, regret, anger, curiosity, and the quiet fear of what this encounter would bring. Leo, sensing the weight of the moment, remained silent but alert, studying the man who could be his father. Lena's hands tightened around her bag strap, a subtle gesture of control and caution. Finally, Nathan broke the silence, his voice hoarse and unsteady. Is that?" Lena's eyes met his. She didn't answer immediately. She let the moment linger, letting him feel the full weight of his absence, of the years lost, and of the child he never knew existed. The emotional tension was almost unbearable, the kind that could shatter the strongest hearts. And yet, beneath it all, a fragile thread of possibility remained, one that would determine whether this confrontation ended in forgiveness, anger, or a reckoning neither of them could have anticipated. Lena took a slow, deliberate breath, the weight of 18 years pressing against her chest. She met Nathan's eyes, steady and unflinching, and began to speak. "Nathan," she said softly, "there's something you need to know, something I never told you." Her voice trembled only slightly, betraying the flood of emotions she had carried for nearly 2 decades. Nathan's eyes widened, panic creeping into his expression. What do you mean?" he asked, his voice cracking. He had faced bankruptcy, loss, and humiliation, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Lena's gaze shifted to Leo, standing beside her, calm but observant. "I was pregnant when you left," she said, her words deliberate, carrying the weight of every lonely night, every struggle, every sacrifice she had endured alone. "Our son. Leo. He is yours." Time seemed to stop. Nathan's mouth opened, closed, and opened again, as if searching for words that would never come. His knees buckled slightly, and he sank into a chair, gripping the armrests as the full realization hit him. The life he had ignored, the child he had abandoned, the years he had wasted, all of it came crashing down. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "All these years. I had no idea. I missed everything." The enormity of his absence hit him harder than any financial loss, any public humiliation. He had lost a family, a son, and the chance to be a part of a life that was never truly gone, but had grown without him. Leo, for his part, remained composed, though emotion flickered in his eyes. He had heard pieces of the story, but the confirmation carried weight he was only beginning to comprehend. Despite the calm exterior, he felt a quiet storm inside, anger, curiosity, and the need to understand the man who had abandoned his mother and now appeared before him, vulnerable and remorseful. Lena watched the scene unfold, a mixture of sorrow and quiet triumph in her heart. Nathan was confronted with the consequences of his choices, a lifetime of missed moments condensed into this one painful truth. And for the first time, he truly understood what he had lost, and the depth of the strength and resilience of the woman, and the son, he had left behind. Lena's eyes met Nathan's, calm yet firm, carrying the weight of years of struggle and growth. She could see the raw desperation etched across his face, the vulnerability he had never shown before, and she felt a flicker of something she had not felt in years, empathy. But it was tempered with steel. She had survived betrayal, loneliness, and hardship. She would not be undone by the same man who had caused her so much pain. "I will help you," she said quietly, each word deliberate. "But there are rules. Boundaries." Nathan blinked, overwhelmed, unsure how to respond. Lena continued, "I am not the woman you left behind, Nathan. I don't love you anymore. I cannot give you the forgiveness that would erase your choices. I can guide you, help you recover, but only as long as you respect what I've built with Leo, and what I've had to endure alone." Nathan's shoulders slumped, shame and relief mixing in a confusing, heavy weight. He had imagined begging for help, but he hadn't imagined hearing such clarity. Lena's strength was undeniable, a force he had never learned to respect until now. "And Leo," she said, voice firmer now, "he is not a tool for your redemption. He will not bear the resentment or guilt you've carried for years. His life is his own, and I will protect him from any harm your mistakes could cause." Nathan nodded, the enormity of her words sinking in. This was not the forgiveness he had once taken for granted, this was not the mother who had waited helplessly for him. This was Lena, forged from pain, determination, and love for her son. He had to accept it if he wanted any chance of rebuilding even a fragment of trust. For the first time, Nathan understood that compassion was not weakness, and that Lena's strength would guide, not break, both him and Leo. Leo stood quietly, watching Nathan fumble with words and gestures, trying desperately to bridge a gap of 18 years. He wasn't sure what to feel, anger, curiosity, or cautious hope, but he knew one thing: he wanted to understand the man who had given him life, even if that man had abandoned it. "I'll try," Leo said finally, his voice calm but resolute. "But it'll be slow. I need to see who you are now." Nathan nodded, swallowing hard, relief and guilt mingling in his chest. He understood he had been given a rare chance, one he had squandered for nearly 2 decades. From that day, Nathan began to take small steps toward becoming a better person. He asked questions about Leo's life, listened attentively, and tried to offer guidance without overstepping. Every conversation, every shared moment, was tentative at first, as if both were feeling out the fragile thread connecting them. There were missteps, awkward silences, unintentional mistakes, moments when the past threatened to overshadow the present, but Nathan persisted. He worked tirelessly, not to erase the past, but to show through action that he could change, that he could be worthy of trust and connection. Meanwhile, Lena observed the growing bond with a quiet, steady heart. She had not allowed resentment or anger to cloud her judgment. She saw her son's curiosity and Nathan's earnest, though imperfect, attempts to rebuild. Each small moment of understanding, each step forward, was a testament to the strength of her decisions, the wisdom of her patience, and the power of compassion balanced with caution. In those early days of reconciliation, there was no rush, no expectation for perfection, only the tentative, fragile, yet hopeful steps of healing. Lena felt a quiet peace settle over her, knowing she had protected her son while allowing him the chance to form a connection, and that the man before them, flawed though he was, had finally begun to learn the meaning of responsibility, love, and true family. Years passed, and life slowly settled into a rhythm of healing, growth, and quiet triumph. Nathan, though no longer a millionaire, found stability in simplicity. He focused on his health, learning to care for himself as he once ignored the warning signs of his body and soul. The extravagance and luxury he had once clung to became irrelevant. What mattered was presence, responsibility, and the chance to be part of his son's life. He was no longer defined by wealth or power but by the effort he made to be a better man, a better father. Leo thrived under the guidance of both his mother and father, carving out his own path with determination, intelligence, and integrity. Whether in university or at work, he excelled, earning respect through merit rather than privilege. he carried with him the lessons of resilience and compassion his mother had instilled, tempered by the slowly growing understanding of his father's flaws and efforts to change. The bond between them, once fragile, grew stronger with each honest conversation and shared experience, anchored in patience and mutual respect. Lena, meanwhile, stood as the embodiment of strength and self-respect. The years of hardship had forged her into a woman who no longer needed validation from Nathan or anyone else. She found freedom in her independence, peace in the knowledge that she had protected her child, and joy in the small, meaningful moments that built a life of authenticity and love. In quiet moments together, family dinners, evening walks, laughter spilling across shared memories, one truth became undeniable. Family is not measured by wealth, status, or material comfort. It is measured by love, sacrifice, forgiveness, and the courage to protect and nurture one another through life's storms. Nathan had learned the hard way, Leo had grown stronger because of it, and Lena had proven that true power lies not in money or dominance, but in resilience, heart, and the unwavering choice to do what is right. Life had come full circle, and this time, they were ready to embrace it together.